You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
And don't last long. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather updates all throughout the day. It's absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Tuesday, September 10, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. I've got Chase Brumfeld right there, just 10 feet from me on the other side of the glass, as I like to say, in the control room. He's manning the controls and taking your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. I see we've already got a call this morning. We'll get to it in just a moment. 205-342-9904, 205-342-9904. We got a good show on tap for you, as we do every day, particularly during football season when there's just so much content to talk about and to discuss. First, I need to tell you, though, this hour of the Gary Harris Show is being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union, member-owned and not-for-profit. It really is just a better way of banking. Our mission is to enhance the lives of our members and team members, strengthen our communities, and live our shared values. Alabama's best credit union ensures you feel good about your money. Our dedicated team provides needed products and financial counsel with a smile, treating members like family. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money. And put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, here's the lineup for today. The Rocket Man, Drudy Armand, from 977 ESPN Radio in Huntsville, will join us at 9:30 to talk some ball. And then at 10:15, Kayla Anderson with the Titans report. The Titans absolutely just gifted one to the Chicago Bears this past Sunday. Despite holding Chicago to under 150 yards total offense and Caleb Williams to under 100 yards passing, they lost the game 24-17. She'll explain to us how that happened. Explain to us how that happened coming up at 10:15. Also, yesterday was press conference day at the University of Alabama. You've heard plenty from Kalen DeBoer the last couple of days, but we've got the coordinators as well, Nick Sheridan and Kane Womack. If we have an opportunity, we'll get to some of that audio for you. You heard in the Fox Sports update, Braves lose in a makeup game against the Reds 1-0, costly loss because the Mets won again. Atlanta, if the playoffs started today, would be out of the playoffs, as they're not playing terrible, but boy, 1-0's the worst way to lose in baseball. The worst way to lose. I mean, 9-8, 10-9. Obviously, if you just get run out of a game, but when you only give up one run and you lose, it doesn't happen often. But it did last night. Braves just got 2 hits and were absolutely anemic on offense. So they're on the outside looking in right now as the playoffs are concerned. Monday Night Football, as you heard, the Jets with Aaron Rodgers opening on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. And that's a tough go. And the Jets, I thought, did some good things on offense, but the 49ers on offense without Christian McCaffrey, who sat this one out with a late announced injury, it didn't matter. Jordan Mason stepped in and picked up the slack, and the 49ers rolled over the Jets 32-19. So Monday Night Football is off and running. I know many of you have DirecTV. Didn't get to watch it. But the Jets, for all the talk about them being improved, and I do think they are, but at the end of the day, it was still a loss. And they're 0-1. The 49ers are 1-0. Alabama football prepares for Wisconsin. As I said, we're going to dive full speed into that. Right now, though, we're going to jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, 205-342-9904. And Robert in Birmingham is ready to lead us off this morning. Lead us off, Robert. Good morning.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Doing great.
Let me preface some of this. I went back. I've watched the game twice now,
okay.
So I'm not flying from the hip.
Okay.
And I listened to all the coaches yesterday. You know, they don't say anything. It's like 2 hours worth of like nothing. But I get it. And I do know the offensive line was hampered, and watching the game Saturday, they took the exact same plan they did last year and the exact same plan that Michigan used, and we still don't recognize blitzes. We still don't have hot routes. Our quarterback doesn't see the blitzes. He won't throw it to a hot route. I don't know. I guess they're trying to save stuff, but it's not all on the quarterback. It never is. As Coach Saban taught us, it's all a cumulative of everything. But he really has not progressed at all. He stands in one spot. He doesn't move when he needs to. And I thought we were going to see this big quantum jump in his development, and I haven't seen it. And am I being too harsh, or am I being real? Because it reminded me. I went to the Michigan game. I was there. They brought 5 on every play, sometimes 6. Those guys brought 6, sometimes 7, and we looked exactly the same. We looked no different than we did on January 1 of last year against pressure. And I'll be quiet.
I think it's probably in between. I certainly think there's reason to be concerned. As you said, you certainly can't put it all on Jalen Milroe. And as far as the game plan, as I said yesterday, I had my standpoint of not being a football coach is a lot different. But from what I saw, I was puzzled by the plan. And you say, well, there are no hot routes. Well, I don't know that that's on the quarterback. Every time I look down, the guys were running 15 yards down the field. It's hard to get the ball out quick if nobody's running underneath or there's not.
It's 3rd and 5, and we're throwing 30-yard passes.
All I can tell you is it's not the same coaching staff as it was a year ago. It's a completely new coaching staff. So,
it looks the same. As far as the offensive product.
My point is, I'm sure they're going to work on what they came out of that game against South Florida and try to make some adjustments. And again, I don't know about the whole holding stuff back. I don't really understand that concept. If you've got plays that are good, you should run them, I think. But maybe they aren't, showing everything. Maybe they are waiting to unleash some things. And, I do think the offensive game plan and execution needs to be better. And I'm going to say that across the board. It starts up front. That was, whether people want to hear it or not, that is a makeshift offensive line they're playing with right now. Once you lose your starting left tackle, and you have to wind up eventually in this game moving a guard out to tackle, and you put in another guy at guard who is more of a, just a plug and play type guy, but not one of your best 5. The offensive line has issues. They couldn't get the running game going. They were breaking down in pass protection. I agree with you on the blitz. When they're bringing people every play, it seemed like there should have been something offensively to try to counter that, and there wasn't. But as I said, those coaches are paid a lot of money to figure it out, and hopefully they will. And they've got some playmakers on that offense, and I just hope that you see a much better performance on Saturday, Robert. That's really all I can say.
Yeah, my big thing, I want to see Milroe kind of take the next step, and that just is not happening right now. I hope I'm wrong. By the end of the year, he does, but right now he's the same quarterback he was on January 1 against Michigan, and that just doesn't.
That's listen. You got a right to your opinion, and I am going to say this again. I said this last year. That same quarterback took Alabama to an SEC championship and the college football playoff. It wasn't like Alabama was terrible. There were a lot of, there were now there's 15 other SEC, but there were 13 other SEC quarterbacks last year that didn't do with their team what he was able to do with his team. So you have to take it, you have to keep it in perspective. You're not talking about a team that was 8-4 last year. You're talking about a team that made it to the Rose Bowl and lost to the national champion that went 15-0. So it's not like he's, struggling with a team that went 7-5. He led a team to an SEC championship, beat a team that not a lot of people picked Alabama to have success against in Georgia. So you're not wrong in the sense that last game offensively I thought was a bad game. But I think he's much closer to being the quarterback that you're saying he needs to be than what you're giving him credit for. So I think we could see a step this week. And, some of the things that he does that you want to see him do are not going to be probably to your standard of what you're expecting because he's just not that kind of quarterback. And they're going to play to his strengths. And part of his strength is the quarterback run game. He does throw the ball well down the field. Now, do I think there are things they should, from a game plan and coaching management standpoint, you don't always have to use, the passing game to get your playmakers the ball. You know, there are jet sweeps. You know, there are reverses, or certainly there are wide receiver screens. You're right. There are predetermined plays that you can run that says we're going to get the ball to number 2 or number 1 or number 5, and there's no guesswork in it. This is a play. So maybe we'll see some of that where the play is designed to go to one guy early after the snap, so there's no chance that you get hit by a blitz or an adjustment by the defense. So, yeah, I put some of that on the coaches to game plan a way to counter what you're talking about, because that's fair. Your criticism of not handling the blitz is very fair. They struggled with it all night, and I say they collectively as an offense. So they need to figure it out. All
right, buddy. I appreciate it. I want him to be a top 3 Heisman finalist. I want him to be a top 5 draft. But if he doesn't start moving up in the pocket, did you watch the quarterback for Texas? They're 2 different animals, but you know, moving up in the pocket, moving sideways, he stands on the spot and he doesn't move, and you're a stationary target, and then you take a 20. It's just like he's got to progress, and the progression is not coming.
Well, hopefully,
and I hope it does.
Yeah,
I hope it does.
I hope it does too. And as you said, I mean, the coaching staff, if we see it, they see it, and hopefully they're going to, you know, everybody's going to take a step in the right direction. Because I still say, even though Alabama's a big favorite in this game, 15.5 point favorite, Wisconsin in that environment is going to be capable of giving Alabama a good game. Thank you, Robert.
See you, bye.
All right, man. Good analysis. Nothing wrong with his analysis. I don't completely agree with it. You know, as I said, I think the criticism of Milroe, I'm not going to tell people that they're wrong necessarily based on the last game. But, Chase, I think you will agree with me, too, in that, again, last year, Jalen Milroe led Alabama to the SEC championship and an overtime away from the national championship game.
I don't understand it. It's like, no disrespect to Robert from Birmingham. I like an analysis and to learn new things, but I just don't understand why we're giving him so much criticism this early in the game, where there's other aspects to why the offense was struggling. Like Jalen, like you said, brought us to an SEC championship and won and almost beat Michigan. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to kind of pump the brakes, learn from the mistakes, and just get ready for Wisconsin.
Let's see what happens on Saturday, you know, but I think there's frustration with the offense from that game. And as I've said before, and I think people that play the position get it, whether we like it or not, there could be everybody on the offense could do the wrong thing and the quarterback could do the right thing, and the quarterback's still going to get the blame. That just goes with being the quarterback. So, and he knows that. And I do think that it is a collective issue. I think they can coach better offensively. I think the offensive line can play better. I think the running backs can run better. I think the receivers can catch better. And I think the quarterback can play better too. So, and they need to. I'm with Robert on that. The performance against South Florida, it needs to be better than that going forward. And, but it needs to be better on defense too. The whole team collectively, and I give South Florida credit for coming in here and playing well. Still, South Florida is not Georgia, obviously, or Tennessee, or LSU, or Oklahoma, or Missouri. And if Alabama doesn't play better in those games than it did against South Florida, it's going to lose some games. But the good news is they're 2-0. They get a bye week after this week. And then, you line up in a couple of weeks against Georgia, and you're going to know exactly where you're at, because Georgia will expose any weakness that you have. You're going to find out in that game. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's go ahead and take one more phone call before we hit the break. We're due to hit the break, but we can squeeze in Philip, because Philip's usually gets right to the point, so we're not going to make him sit through the break. We got time to hit this phone call on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. Hey, Philip, good morning.
Yeah, that was a good call from Robert. I enjoyed that. I have not gone back and watched the game. I was there the other night, and you miss a ton when you're at the game, and people standing up and walking around and all that. You miss a whole lot. I do need to watch it again, but I just saw just a quarterback sort of fighting to survive to get to the next play a lot of times. And I really didn't see him have a whole lot of opportunity to do much as far as casually setting up in the pocket and doing all that. I mean, but I will go back and watch it and see. I just felt like I said yesterday, that we had a lot of elongated routes that hurt our timing the other night because he was so harried, most of the time. But I will say this, and I'm with you, Gary. I don't like to do that. We're holding back type stuff, or they're holding back. But there was one thing I noticed the other night, and you may have too. We had a player on offense that we threw to a few times early on, and I believe he caught both passes we threw to him. But after that, we didn't see him anymore, I don't think, as far as receptions go. And that was Caleb Odom.
Yeah, I think they're trying to get Caleb Odom, involved in the offense more. I think that he's obviously a talent. He's 6'5". You're right. I know he caught one ball, probably like you said, too early, and he's not probably one of the go-to guys yet. But with a guy with that kind of size and that kind of talent, I certainly think you want to get him involved in the offense going forward. And they want to get all their playmakers involved. I think that's something that, again, I watched that game against South Florida, and it sounds like you feel similar to me, Philip, is that they just didn't get any rhythm offensively. As you said, a lot of times the play broke down very early because of the offensive line, whether it was a run play getting collapsed or it was the pass protection not holding up. And so you could tell they were struggling to get in a rhythm by the fact that I kind of felt like, based on what the coaches had said, that Alabama wanted to play fast. And in that game, they did anything but. They were slowing down the tempo. They were waiting to deep into the play clock to snap the ball. And, it was just a game offensively where I felt like they were discombobulated. And I think most people that watched the game felt the same way. Now, late in the game, once they got the running game cranked up, and I guess they wore South Florida down, if you'd have seen that for 4 quarters, we'd have a whole different vibe. But we didn't see it for 4 quarters. We saw it for maybe, the last 10 or 11 minutes of the game. And would have been nice to have seen that all the way. But, like I said to Robert, and you and I talk about this too, you turn the page in football to the next game, and hopefully Alabama is going to have a good week of preparation, take a lot away from this South Florida game, and be better on Saturday at Camp Randall and have an impressive performance. I think that would be a good feeling for Alabama to play well going into the bye, knowing you got Georgia coming up in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Well, I enjoyed Robert's call. That was great, and I just think that Odom, they threw to Odom, and he produced. And we'll see what happens going forward, but I think that's something to keep an eye on.
I agree.
Appreciate you, Gary.
Thank you, Philip. All right, 9:19 here on the Gary Harris Show. This hour being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. We're going to take a time out. We got Drew DeArmond coming up at 9:30, and we're going to come back with more of your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. Pinnacle Park, luxury gated townhome community near beautiful Lake Tuscaloosa. You need to see it to believe it. PinnacleParkNR.com. That's PinnacleParkNR.com. Check out these beautiful 4-bedroom, 4-bath townhomes in a gated community with a terrific environment to live in. And I'm sure you're going to want to set up a visit to find out more about Pinnacle Park at North River Townhomes. All right, we'll be back with more of the Gary Harris Show right after this. As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special, Monday through Friday from
All-Phase Electric Supply. Touch every part of what powers your life. Stop by CED in Tuscaloosa, Coleman, and Decatur, or All-Phase Electric Supply in Albertville and Huntsville.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money.
Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions in both dining rooms, at at the bar and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 89. Becoming cloudy tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow cloudy, rain moving in during the day, the high 83. Thursday breezy with widespread rain, the high at 74. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show. For Alabama sports, Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:23. Let's keep the phone calls rolling. We've got George and Macon, and then we'll get to Tom. Good morning, George. How are you?
I'm good, Gary. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Just had a few comments. Everybody's talking about railroad needs to do this, railroad needs to do that. But if you look, where the rush on him, their defense was getting there about as quick as, the ball was to him, and he didn't have time to do anything. And if you watch Patrick Mahomes, when they get that kind of rush on him, he can't do much either. I mean, he doesn't have time to hardly breathe in there on him. So, I mean, just like you said, Milroe got us to the Final Four and almost got us to the championship game. So I don't understand all this negative talk about him, and I really appreciate you for, mentioning that.
Yeah, it all starts up front, and when your offensive line is breaking down, it's going to be tough for the quarterback. I just think collectively the offense needs to play better, and that includes Jalen. But I think they all do, and I think that they can. That's the encouraging thing, and I think that Nick Sheridan and the offensive coaches, quite frankly, can coach better. I agree with you. I'm no coach, but that offensive game plan, in my opinion, was lacking. So we'll see what adjustments they make, and we'll see what they do going forward.
If you look at the shots from the end zone when the ball was snapped, they had open lanes to attack the passer, and that's the part that I don't understand. Some of our linemen need to work on their footwork so they can get in front of the defender or the guy attacking Milroe. But like you say, he did take us to almost the final game in the championship. And we lost that game not because of him.
I'm with you.
So, I just, everybody said, he didn't have kind of hot right here. He didn't do this and he didn't do that. But let's look at what he did do. Like you said, if there had not have been a holding penalty on that 75-yard run, that game would have been over a lot quicker than it was.
It would have changed things,
I appreciate
no doubt.
you for defending him.
Thank you, George.
Also, I'm going to get you a shot of the big house and send it to you.
All right, yeah, please do. Please do. I'll always look forward to those picks. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
All right, George, and we're going to get Tom in here before we have to get to the break. Hey, good morning, Tom.
Hey, Gary, I think you and George nailed it about the game last weekend. And I wanted to add this. We had a makeshift offensive line. You made that point. It's a valid point, a great point. But when South Florida and these teams, Georgia State or whoever they are, they come in, they got nothing to lose. They sell out on defense, just like South Florida did Saturday. If you remember, they were so active up front with slant, stunt, blitz, on and on. And when you got makeshift offensive linemen, and they're not in tune to what they're supposed to do with those kind of situations, it's going to make that entire offense look bad, and it's going to make Jalen look bad. But my hat's off to those guys who come in. They have nothing to lose, and they slant, they shoot the gap, they do all kind of crazy stuff, and it disrupts time and rhythm, everything, especially when you got a makeshift offensive line. Thanks, Gary. I want to hear your take on it.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I think that the most critical part of an offense, more so than the skill people even, is the offensive line. Because without offensive line play, you can't do much. And even if you have average skill people, an average quarterback, an average running game, if you have a dynamic offensive line, you're going to make some first downs. You're going to move the football. If you have an offensive line that is struggling and breaking down at the point of attack, whether it's in the run game or it's pass pro, the offense is going to, especially the quarterback, is going to have issues. And I thought the other night that the offensive line struggled, for whatever reasons. And I think it's clear that, having, as I said, and you seem to agree, a makeshift offensive line, hurts. I mean, it's hard to get into a rhythm. So we need the left tackle back, Caden Proctor. Hopefully he's back this week, because another thing, you got to remember, he hasn't played a game since last season, and he didn't go through spring. So he needs a little game experience, too, before Georgia rolls in here. So I think that's another reason it'd be important for him to play on Saturday. And then, you got your two guards, Booker and Roberts, which I think are as two good guards as there are in the country. Brailsford, I think, is going to be a good center. So if you get the left tackle situated, and then with Formby and Pritchett at right tackle, that position needs to be better. The offensive line has a chance. And I think if the offensive line is performing at the level that it needs to perform at, you're going to see the rest of the offense kind of follow suit. So I'm optimistic. I'm encouraged, even though the performance against USF was not ideal. I'm encouraged by what can happen in the future. All right, it's 9:29. We need to get to the break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by the Rocket Man, Drew.
Coach's Huddle is your insight into your local prep sports program and is brought to you by Venue Tuscaloosa, Barkley GMC, and Legend Energy Drinks.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time.
And rates as low as 3.99. And yes, specials on the all-new Frontier V6. $3,000 instant savings and rates as low as 2.99. See Kylan or BJ today at Townsend Nissan.
The best station in the state, breaking down Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
.932, and it's time for the Rocket Man, Drew DeArmond, 977 ESPN Radio in Huntsville. He co-hosts Talking Ball with Scott Tyson weekday mornings from 7 until 9. He's very active on social media, on other radio shows, TiderInsider.com, and always a pleasure to have Drew on with us Tuesday mornings here at 9:30. Good morning, Drew.
Morning, Gary.
Let's talk some ball. 2 games in, there's only 3 possible outcomes. 0-2, 1-1, and the desired 1, 2-0. And Alabama has the desired outcome at this point. They're 2-0. Having said that, I think that many of us, and I want to get your reaction, were surprised by, even after what happened down there last year. I was still surprised at how competitive that game was Saturday night. It was a fourth quarter game, regardless of what the final score says. And I thought Alabama was mistake prone and left a lot to be desired on both sides of the ball. Having said that, they got the W. Your reaction to Alabama 42, South Florida 16?
It was a struggle bus for the first 3 quarters. It was 14-13, and it was a kind of a combination of 2 games that it reminded me of during the Saban era, and Alabama lost them both. But the beginning of the game kind of reminded me of the 2008 Sugar Bowl against Utah, because Alabama had so many missing pieces, and the offensive line was kind of a mash unit. It was a patchwork deal. They were moving a lot of guys around. It was the first game of extensive action for Gino Vandemark. He really struggled. Wilkin Formby, who's just a young redshirt freshman, solid game last week, but he struggled with the pass rushers. And I'm going to give Tony Orlando credit. He's a really good DC who's been at Texas and, been on the Power 4 level. He smelled blood early and started sending a lot of guys from every different direction. And Alabama was discombobulated. I mean, they couldn't get much push in the running game. They certainly, struggled in pass protection at times, didn't have much consistency. with all that said, I mean, I thought there was a couple of turning points in the game. I thought Alabama did a good job of, I guess, using a Nick Saban term, and just I can't use the exact word because we're not on XM radio, but they got through the bleed storm early, and then it would have been a 21-6 game at halftime. That holding call on Formby,
big,
they called back the 75-yard touchdown run by Milroe, really changed the half because you're talking about being up 21-6 in a very solid position, and then you come out of the locker room, and that's where the game shifted to feeling like the whole third quarter was like the 2015 Ole Miss game because Alabama was their own worst enemy. Law fumbles the opening kickoff. Then you get the ball at the football jam. Miller fumbles. And then at the start of the fourth quarter, you're knocking on the door. You're finally looking like you're going to extend the lead, and you fumble the football and give them the ball, on the goal line because you fumble on the two. So, but I will say this. All that said, I still felt like Alabama responded in a very positive way. I thought it was a championship-level response. I think it shows that they believe in their coaching staff and their mission. I saw a lot of good leadership on the field. I saw Malachi Moore certainly jumping on guys on defense. Hey, we've got to do our job. And then, Elijah Pritchett, who they were trying to hold out, he had a little bit of an ankle, but I also think he needs to grow up. He hopefully had a breakthrough watershed moment asking to come into the game. He comes into the game, and it's still very much a football game. I mean, Alabama's up 14-13, and they rip off a couple of runs, and they finally. But honestly, I thought it was really good complimentary football in the fourth quarter because I thought the biggest play of the fourth quarter was after Alabama fumbled on the two, they got the stop. Then we know Cole Adams got hurt on that previous possession, but Jalen Mbakwe went back there for the second time, had an explosive punt return of 28 yards to 34. You set your team up on the knocking on the door. This time you cash it in. Kobe Prentice scores. Then we see Elijah Pritchett come in after you get another stop. Even though it was a red zone stop, that's another big part of the game. Alabama kind of stood on their head because give South Florida credit, they came back firing, and then Alex Golesh made an interesting decision instead of trying to go for it and try to score and get a 2-point conversion and tie the game. He felt like he needed 2 scores, which he did, so he took one. It's 21-16, and then this is where Alabama really stepped on their head. You rip off 2 runs with 57 and Elijah Pritchett in at right tackle with Jam Miller, and then Milroe rips his best throw of the game to Ryan Williams. You extend the lead to 28-16, and everybody relaxes, and then your defense goes out and does their job, gets 2 stops on 4 downs each, and then you run the football behind 57 and you close the game out. So I think that more should be focused on the fourth quarter than the other 3 because I think, again, Pritchett was in the game, that things look totally different, and hopefully he'll now understand how good he can be, what he needs to do to pay attention to detail, and that he is an NFL player, needs to start playing like one. Hopefully they'll get Caden Proctor back this week, but you never know. I still think, that Wilkin Formby will learn a lot from this. And look, Gary, I know you probably talked about it on your show. We've certainly seen some of the replays, and let's just say all the way around the league, it wasn't the greatest weekend for SEC affiliates.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. And you're dead on Wilkin Formby. I did talk a lot about it like yesterday. He did struggle at the same time. That doesn't change the fact that, let's just say a couple of those holding penalties were questionable, to say the least. Let's get to the defense, Drew, because they're not without criticism too. And I thought they rounded into much better form, but early in the game, and you already have. Let's give South Florida, you gave Orlando the defensive coordinator some credit. Let's give Alex Golesh, the head coach, and that offensive staff some credit. That's the Tennessee system. It's the same system you're going to face when you go to Knoxville. And my thought process early in the game was thankful that you're not facing that quarterback because they had guys running wide open. There's no other way around it. I think early on from an offensive standpoint said, listen, we can catch these guys flat-footed. We can just run vertical patterns and get open. And had they hit a couple of those, it would have been a much different game. They didn't, but I was caught off guard by how just from my standpoint, Drew, you may totally disagree. I thought the defense seemed to get caught off guard. And Coach Womack even said yesterday they got caught a couple times, not necessarily in off coverage or in press coverage, kind of in between. And, you can't let just guys run by you wide open. And that is concerning to me. How concerning was it to you?
Well, they had a step a couple times and Byron Brown wasn't able to hit it. But again, it's one of those things. You've got a young secondary. I still thought the defense played well enough and stood on their head, because if they hadn't been good in the red zone, because they were able to scramble and Brown hurt him with his leg, then this would have been a much different game. But Alabama got the stop on the opening possession and forced the field goal, and then they did the same thing in the second half. And don't forget, in the first half also they forced a miss, a long miss. But in the second half they forced another couple of field goals. It's basically the way you're evaluated is how many points did the other team score, and in many situations, because the offense struggled for the first three quarters, Gary, they were put in a tough bind, and they responded every time. The one thing that I have been very encouraged about, and I didn't really think about him being the one. It was more, okay, is it going to be LT Overton? Is it going to be Tim Smith? Is it going to be Jaheim Otis? But they're developing a war daddy up front, and that's Tim Keenan.
Yeah.
He's the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week. He had 9 tackles. He had a sack and a half. He's not just a run plugger. He can rush the passer. He's a 3-down guy, and I think they're developing a good rotation. I saw Jordan Renaud in there at Bandit quite a bit, and I thought he did a good job. So I thought, and then, of course, Jihad Campbell had double-digit tackles. I'm more concerned about and look, you can't do anything about it. It won't be changed until the earliest would be this offseason. I still hate the targeting rule. I hate the way they call it, because, again, every big hit now, you can't have a big hit without them looking for targets.
That's right.
Okay? And so Jefferson had a really good game up to that point. He had 10 tackles. Now, I guess he'll be out for the first half against Wisconsin. So it amps things up, because that means, we all know, Jeremiah Alexander's already been hurt. He's been out. So you've got to, you don't have as many guys. You'll have Jihad. You'll have the 2 bell cows and Deontay Lawson. But, Jefferson was definitely that third guy. So you'll be without him for a half. Somebody's going to have to kind of step it up a little bit. And we'll see who steps it up in practice this week and who can do the job. Could be, Arankwo, the true freshman who has looked impressive in scrimmages and played a little bit, but that you're down a guy going in to a tough road environment against Wisconsin. But I thought overall, Overton played another good game. I thought the edge guys did a good job. We saw I still say the first official start of Clay Rusaw's career. I thought he did a nice job. James Smith. The guys running open are a little concerning, but I think overall Alabama did a good job defensively of holding down a talented South Florida team. And then I just thought overall the one thing they need to create some turnovers, and that goes back to the secondary a little bit. They did create turnovers in the first game. They didn't create any in the running game, but at the same time, I thought they responded well to adversity, and I thought they did a very solid job. And they were able to make stops when they had to get off the field. And I thought, honestly, the fourth quarter, as much as Alabama struggled in the first 3 quarters, and really in all 3 phases, because all 3 phases there was kind of some breakdowns. I thought it was a championship level performance in all 3 phases in the fourth quarter, and I think that's something they need to build on as they go for their first road trip under Kalen DeBoer to Camp Randall.
Drew DeArmond with us, the Rocket Man here, talking some ball on the Gary Harris Show. All right, one final point on the offense, and we'll look ahead to Wisconsin. And again, I'm not a coach, man. I don't know all the time exactly what I'm looking at, but I was puzzled by the game plan. I just couldn't figure out really what they were trying to do. Now, I get it, and you've already alluded to it. If you're struggling up front, whether it's in the run game or in pass pro, it affects how the offense, the continuity. But, all this talk about they're holding stuff back, I don't really know what that means. To me, if you got good plays, you run them. But I do want to ask you about this. And I like Bernard, and I like Law, and they got other good receivers, but two is special. You know it. I know it. Everybody that's watched high school football in this state knows it. I just think that if you're an offensive coordinator, if I'm the offensive coordinator, I've got a set of plays for him every game. I'm saying he's going to touch the ball X amount of times. And if we're having trouble getting the ball down the field, then we're going to run some jet sweeps. We might run a reverse. We might run a wide receiver screen. Now, he's got 3 touchdowns. He's leading them in touchdowns. He's making plays, but I think he can make more. And I think you've got to have plays designed that are just predetermined before the snap that who's touching the ball in this play. I didn't really see that, Drew, and I wonder, if that's your feeling.
Well, I mean, they tried to get him the ball deep, and look, he's already drawn enough attention. He got 2 interference penalties, and he should have got a third. They swallowed their whistles, aka didn't, throw the flag. And then when it mattered most, he ran a good route, good ball from Milroe, his best ball of the day. Made a guy miss, took it 43 yards to the house. Do I expect him to get him the ball, maybe on reverses, on some quick stuff? Yeah, I think that's eventually going to happen, no doubt about it. But I think they went into this not wanting to show a whole lot. They wanted to continue to work on their base stuff. I think they watched tape and thought they could throw the ball deep on them. Look, it's football. Milroe was a little off. It happened. But I think, they had to adjust some things. And they certainly tried to get the ball to Ryan Williams. I'm not sure they tried to get him the ball enough in the short intermediate game, but I'm sure that's going to come. I thought Prentice made some plays. He had a huge touchdown, which is good. They got Bernard more heavily involved. He had I think 3 or 4 catches, so that was nice. We haven't seen a lot of the tight ends yet. I think that's probably going to be coming. And so again. I thought and then we didn't see Kendrick Law touch the ball. So, it was just, look, when you look at it though, Gary, they only had 17 completions the entire game.
True.
Ryan Williams still led the way. It just was an uneven offensive performance. But again, hopefully they can build off some of that stuff in the fourth quarter. And I do think it's only taken 2 games. I asked this question after the game, and I got that exact feedback, and we talked about it on my podcast, Bams Radio. There's no doubt that number 2 is wide receiver 1. He is the guy already at 17 years old, and certainly I know they're going to continue to try to get him and 5 the ball and 6. So those guys are going to be the bell cows of this, and we'll see where the others do. Now that Cole Adams is hurt, though, it may open the door for Emmanuel Henderson, who hasn't done a lot so far. Maybe he's more heavily involved in the game plan heading up to Wisconsin, because I think he has big play potential.
I do too. All right, let's look ahead. And I'm not an odds maker. I'm a little surprised that line is, a little more than a couple touchdowns. I think it might have opened around 14. It's like 15.5. I get it that Wisconsin has not been impressive their first 2 games, but I also probably believe they've been gearing up for this game. It's going to be in a raucous environment. It's going to be big noon kickoff. I think this is a test. I think this is a real test for Alabama, and I think they'll need to play better than they played on Saturday night. What is your take on this upcoming game against Wisconsin and Camp Randall on Saturday morning?
No, I mean, it's not going to be, an easy football game by any stretch of the imagination. Luke Fickell, I have a lot of respect for, and what he stands for, and what he did at the end at Cincinnati. And he took Jerome Ford. He made him into an NFL running back. There's no doubt about that. They haven't been overly impressive in their 2 games. I mean, in week 1, they played against Lance Taylor in Western Michigan, and they came away with a win. It wasn't pretty, but, they got the job done 28-14. And again, they've got Van Dyke, the QB from Miami. So Alabama knows a little bit about him. They've seen some film of him because quarterbacks move around all the time. They didn't get a lot of big plays. They only averaged about 5 yards a pass completion against Western Michigan. And they ran the ball pretty well, 196 yards, only 4.3 a pop. So we don't know really how about their team speed. That's probably going to be in question. But then they probably also don't misunderstand something. They held some things back as well. And so, and then they played a really good, FCS program in South Dakota, and they were able to, beat them 27-13. Once again, not overly impressive, but they were able to get the job done. And Van Dyke threw for 214 yards once again, a little bit, about 8 yards to completion this time. And they did rush for 171 yards, 4.2 a carry. But if you know Luke Fickell and the way they're going to play, Gary, the way they're going to play is they want to run the football first and foremost. He wanted to do that when Alabama played Cincinnati. And Alabama's just going to have to stop the run. That's the first and foremost thing they're going to have to take away, because Luke Fickell is going to challenge your manhood. And, you know, they certainly are going to play a little differently than we've seen Wisconsin in the past. They're going to spread it out a little more. They are going to throw it and try to be balanced. But you've got to stop the run first and foremost. And if Alabama stops the run, and if they can, and the one good thing is, I just still think Alabama has had trouble with the mobile QB. A lot of people do. Van Dyke is kind of a sitting duck back there. If you can get some pressure on him, and if you blitz, you come from some different spots, I think you can move him off his spot. I think you can potentially get after him. You can turn him over. And then I think if you're Alabama, you've got Jalen Milroe, who I think we figured out his best approach as a player is when he runs the football. And I like what they've done as a coaching staff early in the first two games with Jalen, is we've seen him reach the end zone, I believe, 4 times, but the student body right, student body left, where he is the primary runner. They block that up really well. Jalen's big, hard to tackle. He's very physical, and I think they need to continue to use that. And then I think they also need to continue to understand that while they didn't complete a lot of balls deep in this past game, that the deep ball is still going to be a big part of what they do. It's a big part of what they did against Western Kentucky, and I think some shots are going to be there for Wisconsin. They just need to hit those, and I think they need to run the football themselves, because I think, especially in the fourth quarter, you see how special Jam Miller and Justice Haynes can be. And I just think overall it's a line of scrimmage game first and foremost, and Alabama's going to have to win this game up front against Wisconsin. I don't necessarily think at times it's going to be pretty, because Wisconsin likes to get dirty, but I think if Alabama protects the ball and does a better job and wins the turnover battle this week and can force Wisconsin into a couple of mistakes, I still like Alabama to win to cover and to win a 31-13 type game.
Lastly, Drew, and you do a great job covering Alabama, but you also do a very good job of going around the SEC. Let me ask you about Auburn, because like I said, after 2 games, you got 3 outcomes, either 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2. And I don't think anybody expected Auburn to be 1-1, but they are. And Cal came in there and beat them. I mean, there's no other way around it. Auburn was fortunate to have a chance in the fourth quarter to either tie or, possibly, have a chance to win that game. They were outplayed. More questions about Peyton Thorne. The young wide receivers found out that, quickly this was an Alabama A&M on defense. Just your reaction to what happened at Auburn on Saturday and where they go from here as far as their quarterback situation.
Well, I think they're going to stick with Peyton Thorne for now. Now, if they struggle against New Mexico, they've got to get some confidence going. And Bronco Mendenhall is a pretty good football coach. We know he had success at his alma mater, BYU, and initially at Virginia. But they've had a rough start to their transition. But that's no surprise. But Auburn needs to gain more confidence and to execute in this game. Peyton Thorne did not play well at all in the last game. Now, some of that, was on the receivers. Some of it, though, was his ball placement wasn't very good. But I'll be honest with you, where it would worry me more as an Auburn fan, everybody always worries about the quarterback, but I would be worried about the lines of scrimmage. I think Percy Lewis has not been what they thought he would be when they brought him in to play left tackle from Mississippi State. I think they're still kind of figuring out who their best 5 linemen are. And when Hugh Freeze was in Dallas, he told us that he felt like the strength of his football team was the running game. They did not run the ball against Cal very well at all. So they've got to run the football better. They've got to take pressure off the quarterback. I thought, especially in the second half, Peyton Thorne was having to do too much. He's not a guy that can carry this football team. He has to be a complimentary piece. They probably should have gone after another QB, but Hugh Freeze decided to try to improve the supporting cast. I thought he had, but then some of these wide receivers are going to have to grow up quick. I know Cam Coleman's a little banged up, so we'll see how much he plays on Saturday. But there's no doubt, Keandre Lambert-Smith, he's got to play well. And I didn't think he did a great job, the transfer from Penn State. As an offense, they just have to step up and execute. But I just thought overall, except for Keldrick Fault on the defensive line, Auburn did not play good football on either line of scrimmage. It's a line of scrimmage game, Gary, and if you don't play well on the line of scrimmage, you're not going to beat anyone. They got beat in the trenches by Cal, and so they need to gain some confidence against New Mexico because their schedule in the next month is brutal. When you talk about, Arkansas looks much improved, and then they got Oklahoma, they got Missouri coming up. They've got some really good football teams they're going to be playing, and Georgia. So this Auburn season is already at a tipping point because they were expecting to go 4-1 or 5-0 on this homestand to start the season, and that's very much in question, especially if they don't play well against New Mexico and have to win an ugly game, because Arkansas is very capable coming to Jordan-Hare, and then Oklahoma, they didn't look great against Houston, but they certainly have talent. So Auburn's at a fork in the road already in year 2 under Hugh Freeze. They've got to play better on Saturday.
Good analysis as always, Drew. We appreciate it. And where can people find you?
They can find me at Drew D 977 ESPN on X and our station at 977 ESPN. Scott Tyson and I bring you Talking Ball 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on ESPN 97.7 The Zone. And if you miss any of that, you can go to 977ESPN.com or our SoundCloud page, 977 ESPN The Zone, and get any of our content put up right after the show. So we always appreciate being on time with 109, being on the Gary Harris Show and talking some ball. And heck, it's already well underway, guys. It's a big road trip for Alabama. Nick Saban, I thought his tenure was kind of defined by how well his team played on the road. They always understood they were Muhammad Ali and they were going to have to bring it. And for the most part, his entire tenure, they did that. It's going to be really interested to see how Kalen DeBoer's team looks on Saturday at 11 a.m. inside Camp Randall on the campus of with the Wisconsin Badgers.
Thank you, Drew, very much.
Thank you.
All right, it's 9:55. We'll take a timeout, come back and wrap up the first hour, get you ready for hour number 2 on the Gary Harris Show.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hours events.
Visit us at 3537 Skyland Boulevard East or online at bmwoftuscaloosa.com. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy
through December 28th, Castrol Edge and Edge High Mileage Motor Oil are on rollback at Walmart.
Claim based on sequence dyne test under high-load conditions versus API-SP test limits.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:57. We're wrapping up hour number 1. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Quick word on the YMCA of Tuscaloosa. The Y is ready when you're ready for the Y. No joining fee during the month of September. Join for free right now at the YMCA. All you have to do is begin your monthly dues. Also, 10% off all their personal training packages. Personal training, if you're struggling to reach your fitness goals, might be the answer. They've got duo sessions and single sessions.
Here for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Kevin Wire.
Monday Night Football saw the 49ers take down the Jets 32-19. No Christian McCaffrey for San Francisco, and in his place, Jordan Mason had himself a big night with 28 carries, 147 yards, and a touchdown. Jake Moody also coming up big for the Niners as he booted 6 field goals in the victory. As for Aaron Rodgers, just 13-27 passing for 167 yards to go along with a touchdown and an interception for his first game action in almost a year. In Major League Baseball, the Mets got by the Blue Jays 3-2 while the Braves shut up by the Reds 1-0. So New York has won 10 of their last 11 games. They've leapfrogged past the Braves for sole possession of the final wild card spot in the National League.
Now, this hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
The National Hurricane Center is forecasting Francine to be a hurricane when it makes landfall along the Louisiana coast tomorrow afternoon. It will have an impact on Alabama with up to 2 inches of rainfall and potential quick spin-up tropical tornadoes. North Fork's River Run Park, which will include state-of-the-art softball and baseball fields, is on schedule. North Fork engineer Tara Tubbs told the City Council last night the parks should be ready this time next fall. West Alabama Works sponsoring a hiring event at Hale County College and Career Academy 2 to 5 today.
Get 24/7 local news coverage and sports updates when you download the free Tuscaloosa Thread app and sign up for twice daily email newsletters. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, here we go. Hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show. Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld. Your phone calls are welcome on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline at 205-342-9904. Kayla Anderson coming up in the next segment with the Titans report. Also, we've got some of that audio from Nick Sheridan and Kane Womack, Alabama offensive defensive coordinators. If we get an opportunity, we'll run that for you. But right now, we're going to get back out on the hotline and welcome in our pal JR from over there in Coker. Good morning, JR.
Hey, Ron. Excuse me. Gary, I'm sorry. Anyway, glad I got a chance to talk with you. I know I don't call in much anymore, but I've had a lot of problems going on and I'm trying to deal with, so but I'm not going to dwell on that. But I got a question for you.
Sure.
And it's about the first 2 games, I believe we will play in more of a vanilla playbook. I'm not guaranteed about that. I think maybe in the fourth quarter of this last weekend, we pushed a little deeper into the playbook to try to win that game without a major upset on our hands. But where do you think we're going to get? What do you think about that? And where do you think we're going to do when we get into Wisconsin? Are we going to considerably be deeper, or we're going to still hold back, wait for Georgia, or what?
Well, I've talked about that a little bit this morning. I think that you're trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
No, it's fine, JR. No, I'm just saying I'm going to follow up on what you said. I think you're right onto something. My thought process though is that the holding back stuff. I mean, if I'm coaching, I'm trying to win the game. And, if I need to run something to win the game, I don't know about the whole, I guess what I'm saying, the whole vanilla, we're purposely holding stuff back type of deal. But if that's the case and they spring a bunch of new stuff on Wisconsin, I hope it works because I want to see Alabama play better than they played in the last game. And, I think that they will. And I think that they need to, even though they're a 15-point favorite going on the road, to a Big Ten school with a great home field advantage. I think Alabama needs to play better. So I guess, as far as the holding stuff back and looking vanilla, maybe that's the case. I don't know. I'm more from the school of, I respect every opponent and, I want to win the game I'm playing. Don't know that I'm the kind of coach. If I were a coach, I don't know that I'd be the kind of I'm going to hold stuff back coach. Now, if you can run the ball, line it, run the ball down people's throat and don't have to throw it, then maybe, you say, we're not even going to use the passing game. But in this game, whatever they were holding back, they had to try to, use it in the fourth quarter to win the game.
Exactly.
So I want to win the game I'm playing. I just think in college football today,
I realize
there's so many unknowns in every game and, uncertainties because the roster change over every year that if you're not ready to play on a particular Saturday, you can get beat. So I just want to see them play better, and I think they will.
Well, the reason I was asking that, there's 2 reasons. Is one, I believe they wanted to play a lot of players so that they could get some experience.
True.
So they played deeper into the thing, and so that's one of the reasons they played a little vanilla, and because they felt like, against Western Kentucky particularly, that they had that opportunity to do such as that. Now against South Florida, it kind of turned out to not be quite that way. But anyway, I just feel like they kind of hold back so that they're not showing the Georgias and the other teams in the SEC that are going to be a real challenge for us. Everything that we do, so that they don't have the ability to practice against those type teams.
That's fair. Yeah. I agree there.
And I mean, I'm sure that we still played a lot of good in some of the playbook, some of the good plays that we're going to be using against Georgia and whatnot. But I just feel like they held back a little bit. So,
well, maybe they did, and if they did, maybe, like I said, they're going to spring it on. They're going to spring it on Whiskey on Saturday, and Alabama's going to go up there on the road and blow them out. That'd be fun. That'd be nice.
Well, that would be nice. That would be nice. But yeah, I appreciate you. And what is your prediction? Or do you hold it back for a different day?
Tonight. I don't want to give it away because I want people to watch Tider Insider TV, and I'll make my prediction along with Rodney Orr tonight at 6:30 on TITV. My score prediction on the game. So, and then tomorrow on the show after I've given it on TITV, then I don't mind giving it at all. But I'm going to hang on to it until I do that show. JR.
Well, I'm going to give you mine real quick.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
34-13.
34-13. Bama rolls.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 21-pointer.
Yeah,
I mean,
listen, the line's 15 and a half. So, yeah, I got no problem with that. I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I hope
I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get more than that, but I still think that's a comfortable prediction. But anyway, thank you very much, Gary. You have a great rest of your day.
All right, brother JR, be thinking about you. Appreciate your phone call. And listen, I'll like I said, I'll make my score prediction tonight. I don't right now. I'm still kind of processing everything about how I want to pick this game. You know, I had such a good week the first week on my SEC point spread predictions, and then this week, I didn't have a good week, and that's. In Alabama, the first week, I picked them to cover, and they did. And this week, I picked them to cover, and they didn't. So I thought that line would be a little bit lower, to be honest with you. Again, I'm not an odds maker, but usually I'm pretty close. This one, I was off. I thought this line would be about 10 or 11. I thought Alabama I thought they'd probably be 10, maybe be 11. Instead, it's 15 and a half right now. So that's a lot of points to me on the road against a good team. I think when you look at it, 15 and a half, let's just say that's where it's at this morning. Maybe it's moved a little bit since last night, but let's say it's at 15 and a half. You could win the game fairly comfortably and not cover. What I mean by that, let's say you win the game 31-17, on the road against a good team. That looks pretty good to me. 31, but that's not a cover. You would lose your bet if you bet on Alabama minus 15 and a half. So, I don't know where I'm going to go yet. I'm going to read a little bit more on Wisconsin this afternoon when I'm at the TV station. I know Van Dyke is, got a lot of experience, played at Miami for 4 years. Now he's at Wisconsin. I know they're going to be physical. I know they're going to be well coached. I think they're, probably going to shorten the game a little bit. I think that's quite a few points, I guess is what I'm saying, for Alabama to lay. I did not expect that line to be there. I would have, thought 10 or 11. But the odds makers said it based on trying to get an equal amount of play on both sides, and they obviously feel like they had to set it up a little higher. They must have felt like, if we put it at 11, then it's going to, everybody's going to load up on Bama. So that's where it's at, and, I'm not ready to, kind of say where I'm leaning, but I do think Alabama's a better football team now. I think they're a better football team than Wisconsin. I believe that. And so, I'll tell you this. I'm going to pick Alabama to win the game. I don't mind telling you that because I picked them to win the game in the, preseason when I went through my game-by-game schedule. But whether or not I'm going to pick them to win by, more than 15 and a half, I don't know yet. As I said, I want to put a little more effort into it and read a little more about Wisconsin and why they have struggled offensively to score a ton of points against defenses that they should be able to score points against. So there you go. All right, it's 12 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock, and In the next segment, we'll have the phone lines open on the Pinnacle Park and North River hotline at 205-342-9904. Also, no, we won't have them open because in the next segment, they'll be open again at 10:30. I'm sorry. We've got Kayla Anderson coming up in the next segment. So I was thinking she was at 10:30. She's at 10:15. So we're going to go ahead and take a timeout, come back with Kayla and try to figure out what in the heck happened to the Tennessee Titans on Sunday at Soldier Field, a game that they were in complete control of. They lost, and it's a head scratcher with the Bears less than 150 yards of total offense in that game. Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall draft pick.
Discover better living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 89. Becoming cloudy tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow cloudy, rain moving in during the day, the high 83. Thursday breezy with widespread rain, the high at 74. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Follow the Crimson Tide on their journey to another national championship. Touchdown, Alabama! On your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, it's 10:15. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show in time for the Tennessee Titans Report with Kayla Anderson, a Emmy award-winning sports anchor reporter in her TV days, now one of the hosts for Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Weekday mornings on 104.5 The Zone in Nashville, and she covers the Titans, and she talks Tennessee Titans with us every week here on the program. Good morning, Kayla.
Morning. I hope you guys are doing well this morning.
Doing great. I'm so excited to have you on because, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm just miffed. I don't... I like to use the term snatch defeat from the jaws of victory every now and then. Rarely do you see it, but the Tennessee Titans did it on Sunday. I just don't know any other way to put it. You're dominating the game. Your defense holds the opponent to less than 150 total yards. Caleb Williams, I hate to say he was a non-factor, but he was a non-factor. And somehow you lose the game. And it's just one of those that, and don't even get me started if you happen to have the Titans plus the points. You talk about bad beats. Yeah. This is the definition of a bad beat. But what happened?
Yeah, and it always seems like, and this is just the feedback that we got too from fans this week, because you better believe the phone lines were loaded yesterday. I feel like they always feel like they're on the wrong side of history, because if you remember the stat going into this game, first overall quarterbacks that were selected and in their first game have gone 0-14-1. The last to win a opener that was a first overall pick was David Carr back in 2002. So clearly that was completely shattered on Sunday, because now Caleb Williams becomes that one win since then, and you can't even say that he did anything to help them win the game. You're exactly right. So it is one of those really just disappointing games for Tennessee Titans fans, and especially for this team that has kind of revamped what they want to be in terms of their identity, specifically on offense. And I think that's where I'll get to in a minute in terms of why it went downhill. But what's most frustrating about all of this is because their defensive performance was outstanding in this game. And Denard Wilson, who is a first-time defensive coordinator in this league, I thought had a heck of a game plan to do exactly what he did, which was throw Caleb Williams completely off and make him look like a rookie. And that's what they did. So it's really disappointing when Brian Callahan spoke yesterday and said, really the game plan for us, especially, in that second half when things go wrong, you be simple, right? You don't make any mistakes that are going to give Chicago a chance to win this game. And guess what happened? They did exactly that. And when I say they, I mostly am speaking about second-year quarterback Will Levis, who, yes, only played in his 10th game in his professional career, but we had been told over the past few months he had been working on those things that you can't continue to do as a quarterback, those mistakes, those simple just, kind of throwing the ball to the ground, taking a sack. Instead, you leave the ball live, and in any NFL defense, they're going to try to make the most of it, and that's exactly what the Chicago Bears did. And that simple play, and obviously the blocked punt that they returned for a touchdown that came before it, which gave our punter Ryan Stonehouse plenty of PTSD from last year when he, was knocked out with the injury that he had with the ACL. It just kind of went downhill after that first offensive drive for the Titans in the second half, and they completely shot themselves in the foot. And so now you have to kind of regroup, and you're still questioning, though, has Will Levis really, grown up in those aspects of the game that can be crucial, in these games to follow. If he doesn't clean up those things, it's hard to believe that he's going to be able to do much else.
100%. I'm with you 100%. I think you just diagnosed it. And the thing that I'm miffed about, and I love Coach Talk to some degree because coaches know more than we know, and Coach Talk is they say the right things. Sometimes, though, just because they're right, still the reality of it is, I caught a little bit of Callahan yesterday talking about the interception was a really poor decision. We got to learn from it. Really? What does he learn from that? I mean, what is it about Will Levis? Why do you have to learn from that? I mean, that's one of the stupidest plays I've ever seen in the history of the National Football League. You should never have to learn from that because you should never do it. If you're going to play quarterback in the NFL, that's just one of those cases. I'm not cutting the guy any slack. That's stupid. I mean, really, you have to learn from that? You should never do that in the first place if you're going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. That was one of the stupidest plays I've ever seen, and the fact that he did it makes me question what he's going to be as a quarterback moving forward. I mean, it's one of the worst plays I've ever seen.
I think that is what was surprising to Callahan, because I listened to that whole presser, and while he's not going to completely put everything on Will Levis, he in a way kind of did, because he came out and made it kind of clear too that they were surprised with, specifically that particular play, but with some of the other things that Will Levis did, like when feeling pressure. While they didn't see in camp and certain things, when he was feeling pressure, he would be drifting to the left, right? And they saw in this game, when he started to feel pressure, he started to revert back to old habits, like drifting to the left. Therefore, your throw is going to be a little bit off for your target area. And so I think these are some of the things that they really were genuinely surprised. And remember, this is not Callahan's quarterback. He did not pick Will Levis. And so these are clearly things he's been trying to work out of Will Levis. And so you see all these things pointing in the right direction, but then the minute that he got into game action and when the pressure really started to mount in that second half, it is not a great sign when you have a quarterback reverting back to old ways. And I think that's why there are so many questions here still, because we don't know if that's going to continue. Because, it's hard to break bad habits. And guess what? Will Levis doesn't have a lot of time to do that, because I feel like this is a one-and-done situation, because that's just the fact of that's the league nowadays.
Absolutely.
If you can't prove it, and he's not a first-rounder, he's a second-round pick, so that even adds to it, the pressure. So I think that's the thing that I think was frustrating for the staff, too, and Bo Hardegree, the quarterback coach, that has done a really good job working with these quarterbacks the last couple of months. That's got to be frustrating, because that's something that you were working out of this guy, and you saw, things headed in the right direction. And for it to go back that quickly and to make that blatant of a mistake, I think it has a lot of people worried right now.
Yeah, you're right on again. I mean, we see picks a lot higher than Will Levis get released and cut loose. The only guy I can think of that's been given a longer leash than he should have been was Daniel Jones. I mean, that's why the Giants are in the pickle they're in. Most of the time, you're right. QB in this league, you either get it done when you have the opportunity or they find someone else. All right, let's talk about what's ahead, because you and I discussed last week why this game against the Bears was so important, because, I think you and I both thought the Tennessee Titans should win that game. And they didn't. And before they get into division play, now they've got to host the Jets and the Green Bay and go to Miami, I mean, they're looking at the real possibility of being 0-4 before they ever play a division game. But at the same time, I do think the Jets is a game that they can win. How do you see that one coming, for the home opener on Sunday?
Yeah, and it's interesting because what we saw last night on Monday Night Football, I'm a little bit torn on exactly what I think about this Jets team so early on. And really, you can say this about a lot of teams in week one. We saw not the greatest performances on offense, and that, that obviously discludes the 49ers because they just seem to continue to be, the anomaly there, and they didn't even have Christian McCaffrey in that game. So I think it's hard, you maybe exclude them, but we look at the performances overall. Not a lot of passing touchdowns week one, a lot of field goals. So I think we will see some improvement for some of these NFL offenses, including the New York Jets, which I thought Aaron Rodgers, he wasn't great by any means. You can tell he's getting old. He's clearly not going to be as mobile as he once was. His offensive line is better for sure, but I think, they lacked a lot of things in that game. I think they only had 68 yards on the ground. So there's clearly a lot of improvement that they're going to have to see from that offense. I think people are more so worried, and maybe, the Titans are more so worried right now because of the defense, which didn't put on the greatest performance last night. But you also have to think, too, this is a 49ers offense that obviously came out ready to play and had a undrafted free agent running back from right here in the Tennessee area that went for over 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's not always expected either.
Right.
But I think that defense will adjust. I think there's too much talent on this Jets defense to not adjust, including up front with Quentin Williams, who could give, the front a difficult time, and clearly in Sauce Gardner on the back end too. And that's just to name a couple of those guys. So I think the Titans offense is up again for another challenge. And it's unfortunate, that they faced 2 really good defenses in the first 2 weeks of the NFL season when they're still trying to kind of figure out who they are offensively with Brian Callahan. And for Brian Callahan also to kind of get a feel comfortable with the play calling that he's never done before. Because I think we were also wondering about some of the adjustments in the second half that didn't happen for him. They're going to happen in a game like this. So I think you're worried about the defense just because of the offensive performance, that you saw from the Titans in the second half specifically. But I think Aaron Rodgers and company could be in for a day with this Titans defense. I mean, we've been pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, because I think we knew what Denard Wilson was trying to do, but we hadn't seen all the pieces out there together in training camp, because a lot of those guys were held out, right? Because they were nursing injuries, or just they were on a, kind of a plan in terms of getting them back. But I think that front with Devondre Sweat, who looked awfully good in his rookie debut, dude, that man is a monster, and he's just getting started. I feel like they could really make Aaron Rodgers' day, you know what? It could be a tough day for Rodgers. So if they don't get that run game going, which they weren't able to do against the Niners, it could actually be a long day for that offense. So I'm interested to see on how this one plays out. Could be pretty low scoring, but I do think, Gary, it's winnable. And I think the next game's winnable if you have Malik Willis in at quarterback for Green Bay.
Yeah, that could change everything with the Packers. You're right about that for sure. I think you're right on. You've hit it 100% today. And with Simmons and Sweat, you mentioned Quentin Williams giving the Titans front problems, but you're right. Those 2 guys are going to be a nightmare for the Jets. And I think it's going to come down to Levis. I really do. I just think that Tennessee's defense is going to be strong. Pollard ran the ball well. I mean, the guy, you got to throw for more than 127 and a 30.8 QBR. You're just going to have to. And, got to get Ridley the ball. You brought him in to be a playmaker. We've seen it, Titans fans are so used to uneven quarterback play. I guess it's just the norm, but I just expected more out of him. And if he plays the way he played against the Bears, I think they're going to lose again. It's as simple as that to me. I wonder if you agree. If he plays well, I think Tennessee will win the game. If he doesn't, I think they'll probably find a way to lose it again. I mean, you just got to get more out of your quarterback in the National Football League than what he provided them on Sunday.
Yeah, and I even think in a game like that, and the reason why I don't think he has a ton of leeway right now is because when Brian Callahan brought him in, they made sure not brought him in, when they decided, okay, he's going to be our quarterback, clearly, like I'm taking this job, he's my quarterback, the first thing they thought of that they had to do was surround him with talent. And that's the thing. They went out and spent money. They went out and got Tony Pollard. They went out and got a Calvin Ridley. They obviously have DeAndre Hopkins, who probably will play a lot more snaps this weekend because he's coming back from that MCL. But they've added pieces. Look, they upgraded the offensive line at the center position and Lloyd Cushenberry. So they went out and made sure that they were cushioning Levis with things so that he could take his game to the next level. But you're never going to take your game to the next level if you're constantly shooting yourself in the foot. And Will Levis said last week prior to this game that he felt the biggest thing about what he's learned about himself is playing, consistent football and not doing anything to put the team in harm's way type of talk. And what did he do? He did exactly opposite of what he said prior to that game. And I just think, okay, you can talk the talk, but if you don't walk the walk, there's going to be serious issues. So I think you have to take a jump forward this weekend. And I'm not saying he's got to throw for 200-plus yards, whatever, but he's got to take care of the football and do enough to give his chance the team to win, because the defense is probably going to be able to do their job.
All right, Kayla, one final topic off Titans, but it's still kind of a Tennessee Titans topic, and that's Derrick Henry. I know you watched it closely. I watched it closely. Titans fans watched it closely, and it's just one game. But I do think if you want to be negative in regard to him being with Baltimore, I think that first game is an example of why I think some people question that move with Lamar Jackson, with the way their running game operates. You're talking about a volume ball carrier, a downhill runner. Now, they got behind in the game. I get it. But you saw Jackson kind of take over the running game and Henry really not get the opportunities. As we've seen many years, he can go for 3 yards, 2 yards, 4 yards, 1 yard, 2 yards, and then go 58 yards. Do you have concerns about his ability to fit in with the Ravens offense the way it's constructed?
Yeah, I mean, early on, and I know, again, I'm talking about first games of the season, it is always hard I don't want to ever jump to a solid conclusion or overreact in any way. But I think with that game in particular, it is tough to see, this type of running back who for so many years in Tennessee for 8 seasons, the offense was really, circled around him. I mean, he was the focal point of this offense. And so we're so used to seeing him in that type of role. And it still was able to kind of make do behind 2 really bad offensive lines the past 2 seasons. And that line, I'll also give him, some credit too. That line for Baltimore doesn't look great right now.
Ooh,
so let's give attention to that, because I think that's something to watch out for too. But you're right. I think, no matter what, Lamar Jackson is always going to be that guy who is going to get a significant amount of yards on the ground, because that's just who he is. And I think that's weird to see in a way when Derrick Henry, in certain situations, you saw him in low red zone areas where I think he's still going to always be able to be successful and be able to punch it in for, 6. And then you see in third and short situations, I think that's going to be a nightmare for opposing defenses. But as for the Derrick Henry that you saw with the Titans for the last 8 seasons, I don't know if that's what we're going to see moving forward with that type of offense that they run there. And then when you're playing from behind, Gary, and we saw it in that game, he's not going to be on the field at all.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And maybe each game plan is going to be different, clearly. But I don't think you're going to see the amount of snaps and, maybe the amount of yards that we've seen in the past from Derrick Henry. Not because he's, over 30, but just how they utilize him in this Ravens offense.
Great stuff as always. Kayla, tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me always active on social media, on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Kayla Anderson TV. And, of course, you can download our podcast wherever you get your podcast at Ramon, Kayla, and Will.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, Kayla Anderson with the Tennessee Titans report. Disappointing start to the season, but they get their home opener on Sunday against the Jets, looking to bounce back. All right, it's 10:33 here on the Gary Harris Show. It's a great time to play golf. Probably, to me, even more so than the spring. I think that fall golf is the absolute best. Now, granted, the days get a little shorter, but once you get into the lower humidity, it's just, and not as many people play during the fall because, schedules are different, football and all that. But if you want a quality round of golf at a hidden gem in Tuscaloosa, consider teeing it up at Tall Pines Golf Club. They are there in East Tuscaloosa in the Woodland Forest neighborhood, and they're open 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday for public play. You can call to make a tee time at 205-556-1232. They also have memberships available as well. But if you're looking for a round of golf in a beautiful setting with the weather getting right, I would consider teeing it up at Tall Pines Golf Course. Again, to make a tee time, 205-556-1232. All right, we're wide open for phone calls when we come back for the rest of the show.
And plus, don't miss our grand opening celebration Friday, October the 11th through Sunday, October 13th. And check us out at academy.com with free shipping on purchases over $25.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
All right, it's 10:37 here on the Gary Harris Show, and we're going to jump back out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, and that's where we find our pal Ellis. Hey, Ellis, what's up, man?
Not much. You done all right this morning?
Yes, sir.
Hey, is your the TV station there you work at, is it on YouTube?
Right now it isn't, and
okay,
they're trying to correct that. It's really hurting us because, a lot of people have YouTube TV. The hang up from what I understand is we are what they call a Cozy TV affiliate. That's where we get a lot of our programming from. A lot of syndicated shows, that Frasier and like that. And Cozy already has an outlet on YouTube from what I understand. So they're making it difficult for us to get on YouTube because we are the Cozy affiliate and they already have Cozy, but we are still working at it. What I tell people here locally, and in fact, somebody messaged me about it yesterday, is that if you have YouTube TV here locally, you can just get a little digital antenna and plug it in and pick us up, over the air. If you can't get us, Ellis, you can download the app. You can Google WVUA 23 app and get it on your phone or your wireless device, or you can watch the stream. We have a live stream at WVUA23.com. So those are options.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. I can even send you the link, but it's easy to find. You can just Google WVUA 23 live stream or WVUA 23 app. So if you don't have us on YouTube, that's another way to watch us. But, I hope we can figure out, eventually get on YouTube TV, but right now we're not on it.
Yeah. I'm still going with what Rodney Orr had to say yesterday.
Okay.
You remember what he said, was talking about yesterday?
Yeah.
About how the players were playing in positions that they normally don't play in.
Right.
And that this messes it. I just think this messes the whole team up.
It does. There's no doubt about it. I mean, all positions are about continuity, but no more so than on the offensive line. You need continuity. Like I've said before, the best explanation I've ever heard is like you got 5 fingers, right? You want those fingers to fit your glove correctly. You want to feel like those 5 fingers are in that glove and they're not loose or they're not too tight. And that's why you want an offensive line. You want it to be 5 fingers in a glove fitting perfectly. And right now for Alabama, that's not the case. So hopefully you get Proctor back and you get the right tackle situation figured out, and you get Roberts and Booker there at guard and Brailsford at center, and you're ready to go. But, yeah, they were discombobulated the other night.
Yes. And Conformity, I think when he first got that first holding penalty, they targeted him for the rest of the game.
Yeah,
and watched him. Extra special.
It looks like he got picked on a little bit. I think there's some hand placement things that he's going to have to work on. But, he's still such a young player. And this is another thing that I think people forget, Ellis, is the game has changed so much so quickly, is that most of the time, even, 10 years ago, if you signed an offensive tackle out of high school, you didn't expect him to play until his second, third, fourth year. Now, Will Conformity was redshirted last year. He's a freshman and he's playing. And I think the expectations now are guys play sooner, but sometimes they're not ready to play. It doesn't have anything to do with their talent or their ability or their desire. They just need it. They need to be coached and developed more. And maybe that's the case with Wilkin, because I'm with you. I think he's got a lot of ability. He's got great size. I know the kind of work ethic that he has, the family that he comes from. He's going to do everything the right way, and he'll be fine. It's just that right now, maybe he's just not quite ready to be in that position. We'll see what they decide to do with that right tackle position going forward.
I just hope it don't let it bother him. I hope he holds his head up and just grinds even harder.
Yeah, I think he will, because I think he's made of the right stuff. And I think that, he's, like I said, he's from a really good family, local kid. And
well, that helps a lot.
Yeah, and I think he's got a good self-esteem. And always what I mean this is he's not insecure. And I think that he can take hard coaching, he can take criticism, and he can learn from it and get better. So, yeah, Ellis, I think you're right. I think he's a guy that will benefit from this, because he'll make it a positive rather than a negative.
Yeah, I think the whole team will, too. I think something like this, you're allowed to have a bad game every once in a while.
Sure,
My
absolutely.
goodness.
It happens to the best of
You
them.
can't play perfect every game.
Well, I don't know.
And that team's a good team.
Yeah, that's right.
But a couple more things. I'm fixing to order my ticket tonight to go to the Vanderbilt game. I think that's going to be it's in the evening time, so
I'm probably going to come to that one myself. I like going to Nashville, and I think that's a fun place to go to, and easy trip for me, straight up, 2059 to 65, and then straight into Nashville, go right to the stadium. So
yes,
I'm kind of leaning toward that one myself, Ellis.
Well, I'm gonna get me a hotel room, because it's in the evening. So after the game, I'm gonna head downtown.
I hear you, brother.
Where the action is.
There's certainly plenty of it in Nashville. Thank you, my friend.
All right, roll tide.
All right, thank you, Ellis. All right, let's get to Cowboy, and then we'll hit the break, and then Roland will come back with you on the other side. Good morning, Cowboy.
How you doing, Gary?
Doing well, man. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you. What team in the SEC has surprised you so far this year?
Yeah, good question. Let me think about it a second. Probably the biggest surprise I had Saturday was Kentucky on the wrong side of things. I mean, I just get run out of your own stadium by a South Carolina team that was fortunate the week before to beat Old Dominion. And then the second surprise would be Auburn. Kind of the same deal. I mean, I didn't expect them to lose that game. On the positive side, probably Tennessee, just because they've been dominant, and that was a pretty good football team that they just absolutely waylaid on Saturday night in Charlotte. Georgia's who I think most of us think that they are. I think Texas is who most of us think that they are. But I think Tennessee is making a case, as is Ole Miss, to be considered that creme de la creme. And, when Alabama goes up there in a little more than a month to Knoxville, that is going to be a big, big football game, regardless of what happens in the Georgia game. But I really think Tennessee is, that quarterback's dynamic, and they offensively have.
Gary.
Yeah, they have it.
Hey, Gary, do you know that Nico Amavela was trending to come to Alabama in March of 2022, and then Tennessee with Jimmy Haslett, and that's when the NIL thing really first kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
And they paid a lot of money to get him, and that's kind of when, you know, Saban saw the handwriting on the wall with this NIL deal. And, you know, Nico's got that Polynesian culture, and then after Tua, you know, boy, he would have been dynamic.
Yeah, he certainly would have been, and I do remember his recruitment very well. And listen, it's documented. You're right. You said it. Tennessee paid a lot of money, but you know what? In the modern era that we're in, quarterback, just like in the NFL, is an important position. And, you know, I wonder if Auburn is wishing they had gone on up on the Cam Ward sweepstakes and paid him what he asked for, because they'd probably be a different team.
Hey, Gary, do you know that Kentucky quarterback that transferred to Georgia from Georgia, I was told, he gets $25,000 a month to throw for 1 yard.
Yeah, he was terrible the other day. My Lord, I'll be honest with you, I was stunned how poorly he played. I mean, that's what you listen though. Here's the thing, you know, you bring up a good point with NIL. You got guys, and this is at every school, Alabama included, you're going to have guys sitting on your bench that are going to be making more money than guys that are out there playing. And you wonder how that's going to play over the long term. And then you're going to have quarterbacks that are brought in, like Vandegrift, and paid a nice little sum, and they might not live up to expectations. You know, this is going to work both ways as far as the paying players deal. I mean, some of them are going to earn it. Some of them you're going to say we got a good value on, and there's going to be some of them, just like in pro football, that you're going to be eating up a good chunk of your NIL on, and they're going to be absolutely awful. So, you know, I mean, you look at NIL additions right now, I would say Miami probably hit the biggest home run of anyone in the country, because Cam Ward is the guy who, you know, he's the difference in that team. They've had talent down there, but now they got the quarterback.
Yeah. Do you know 3 years ago, Gary, he was playing 1AA ball?
I do know.
Incarnate Word.
I do know. No, I know his history very, very well. And, you know, and he gets to Houston, and he, you know, like I said, Auburn was in it with him. He was a guy who I think, had Auburn given him what he asked for, he would have been at Auburn. But Hugh Freeze, from what I'm told, did not want to pay the kind of money for a transfer quarterback that Cam Ward asked for. And so they felt like they were going to stay with Peyton Thorne. And, you know, right now, you're only 2 games in, but every game is so important in this league now. And, you know, it looks like a bad move for Auburn not to have tried to get Cam Ward and stay with the guy they stayed with.
You know, Gary, my wildest dreams, I never thought that Auburn would reach to California. Never.
I didn't either. I took them minus the 13, man. And they didn't just lose. They got beat. Let's be clear on it. They got beat up front. They were fortunate to have a chance in the game to have a ball down 7. I mean, that last touchdown drive they had was gifted to them. I mean, that interference call in the end zone on the interception was one of the worst interference calls I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the guy didn't touch him. I mean, he was to the inside of the receiver. The ball was thrown to the inside. He caught the ball, and they threw a flag. I mean, never seen anything like it.
I kept thinking they'd come back and win.
Everybody did, but listen, you know, it's so much riding on every game now. Not that there always hasn't been, but even more so now, because like we're talking about the money involved, the difference in if you make the playoff versus not making the playoff, and the investments that you make in your players and trying. I mean, it's just. I'll be honest with you. I still enjoy watching the games, but with all that's going on with these teams, it's a mess. People don't see it. They don't want to see it. I understand. I always say you don't want to know how the sausage is made, but the things these coaches are dealing with these players that we don't see, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
That's why when I woke up Sunday morning, I felt better because you know what? It was NFL. They're under contract. They're professionals. And I just said, something about this feels better.
Well, it's just at least you understand the rules. And like I said, in college football, we still don't understand the rules. Hey, got to run, Cowboy. Thank you.
All right, good talking to you.
All right, good talking to you. It is 10:50. We are not going to get to the coordinator sound, but that's because we've had great phone calls. Roland, you hold tight over there in Guntersville. You'll lead us off in the next segment. This is the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM, 1230 AM WTBC. Your home for Alabama sports.
On the next Inside the Locker Room with Coach Wimp Sanderson and Barry Sanderson.
Tune in Wednesday, the 7 o'clock hour, brought to you by Yellow. We'll have Roman Harper. We'll talk about the SEC with Roman. In the second hour, Bill Cameron will join us. We'll find out what happened to the Auburn Tigers. Plus, we'll take your
Sniff Solo. Nice. With Downy Unstoppables, you just toss, wash, wow, for all-day freshness. Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 89. Becoming cloudy tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow cloudy, rain moving in during the day, the high 83. Thursday breezy with widespread rain, the high at 74. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:53. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Lunch is right around the corner, and you hear me say it a lot. That Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special at Innisfree is a great lunch. Open at 11 a.m. Get by and check it out. Right now, we're going to check out things with Roland over there at beautiful Lake Guntersville. Good morning, Roland.
Hey, Gary. How you doing this morning? Hope you're doing fine. I think it was Robert that led off his show. And, I thought he had some good points, and he said one thing that I said yesterday to you was, what was the quick hitters when they was rushing,
right.
The hot spot. But, I went back and watched, when you have a makeshift offensive line where you move the guard to tackle and bring in the guy that never played in SEC and all that, I think you're going to have problems. And, and it seemed like Jalen gets the blame for a lot of things that's not under his control. I went back and watched the game last night, and there's a couple times he didn't have time to even turn around hardly.
That's right.
That's all over him. And, and like I say, he gets I think some undue criticism, but, and I know it's part of the game, fumbles and all that's part of the game and all that, and we're fussing about the way they played the first 3 quarters. And, if you take away the fumbles and the cut down on the penalties to 3 or 4 or 5 penalties, that's probably a blowout game. It's probably a 52 to 14 game or 16 game, wherever it was. We'd get something going and we'd get a penalty and get set back 15 yards and make it 2nd and 20 or 1st and 20 or whatever. And that makes it harder. It really makes it hard to, move the ball and get a first down. And, like I say, if you cut out them penalties and cut out them fumbles, I think this is a blowout. And I give South Florida all the credit in the world for their game plan. I thought they had a great game plan. But, our game plan on offense, like we talked yesterday, I don't think was really great. But, like I say, if you cut down on the fumbles, which I think has a lack of focus to me, and the penalties, this game's a blowout. I mean, we move the ball, we start moving it, we get a penalty. Had 2 touchdowns called back, so that's kind of the way I look at it, and if they don't play better than that against, next several teams, we'll get beat, but I fully expect them to play a lot better and not have no 4 fumbles in a game.
I do too, Roland. I think they're going to play better, and I think that I still think this is a really good team. Am I a little disappointed in the performance against South Florida? I am. I didn't expect them to struggle the way that they did, and as you pointed out, had the number of mistakes that they had, the penalties, just the execution errors. But I think that they'll learn from it. I think they're going to be a lot sharper and play much better on Saturday. I think they'll be 3-0 and in the top 5 and waiting for number 1 ranked Georgia. And I think that's kind of where we wanted to see this season be at. After 3 games, 3-0 waiting on Georgia, and I think that. We'll find out all we need to know about this team in 2 weeks from Saturday, I should say, when Georgia comes to town. We'll know exactly what Alabama's got.
I I agree with you, Gary. And I know the time's getting short, so I'm going to let you go, and you have a great rest of your day.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. Always enjoy hearing from you. And that is perfect timing because that is going to wrap it up for the Gary Harris Show. A reminder, catch me on TV tonight with your sports on WVUA 23 and with Rodney Orr for Tider Insider TV at 6:30 tonight on WVUA 23. Back here tomorrow for the Wednesday edition of the Gary Harris Show. T-Town Sports Daily with Wyatt and Chase is coming up next. Have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to you again in the morning at 9 a.m.
Listening to the